Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Okay. What's the second best? There is no second best. There's no second best crypto asset. There's a crypto asset. It's called Bitcoin, right? Right? There's no second best, okay?
Welcome to the Why Bitcoin Show with me, Dale Warburton. It's a weekly podcast on why Bitcoin matters and what makes it fundamentally different to every other crypto token in existence. I've seen firsthand how crypto really works, and my mission is to speak to the brightest minds on earth to help ordinary people distill crypto fact from fiction. Because as Lynn Alden says, and it's spot on, those that conflate Bitcoin and crypto simply don't understand either. All right, so we have part B, and we had about a 20-minute discussion where Michael thought that we were recording, and I broke the news. I broke the news that we weren't. Sorry,
bro. Man, all good.
Oh God, you had a lot of gems, but
that's fine.
These things happen. I have some very specific Bitcoin stuff because I've really enjoyed learning about sort of your journey along the way, all the different lessons you've learned, sort of payments infrastructure and all that, but let's talk specifically now about something that came out at Bitcoin Alive. This was something I never saw coming and never thought about because my brain doesn't work that way. But Bitcoin and AI. There was just this message that kept getting sort of shared with me that was, if AI is going to adopt a currency, it's going to be Bitcoin. And you've had some really interesting thoughts around AI. Yeah. You've obviously given it a lot of thought. So tell us what you think the relationship between the two is and what the future actually looks like.
Yeah. Okay. AI, firstly, let's be real. It's not artificial intelligence. It's not. It's just a big data set. So that's the first thing. So I think about it like EI, which is expedited intelligence. And it basically is if you're trying to get a model, because a lot of people get scared of it. So let me just sort of rewind it and tell you what's actually happening. AI is like a person that can see every web page at once. Now, we can't. We need to look at one at once. So we go through and we synthesize what we believe is to be the truth. Now, AI does that, but it just does it really quickly. So it's going to be like if you gave you and AI the same data set, you would come to the same conclusions if you could draw the same patterns of the data. So that's what AI does. Now, it will definitely affect our likeness. And this is one of the biggest things. So basically, people have built a lot of their whole worth around what they look and sound like. So a movie star, an influencer, and things like that. Soon everyone will look the same or be whoever they want or sound like whatever they want. But you got to remember, AI will always, a machine doesn't, it always functions objectively every single time. Like everyone knows that a machine isn't emotional. The human emotion is the highest state of computation that we can ever perceive, at least in our world. Like we've said, that mimicking the emotion. That's why ChatGPT got 100 million users in 20 seconds or whatever, because it feels like a real person doing real things without this sort of abrupt Siri kind of half-assed sort of got to ask it, very basic tasks. It feels like a person. I don't think AI is coming for our jobs. Everyone's jobs are basically going to be utilizing ChatGPT and stuff like that. But I think AI will objectively always choose the heaviest ledger to write on. Like it's not, if an AI machine has a job to do, it will objectively choose, it'll base it on statistics and data where it should store its information for the boss that's asking it. And every machine will choose the same thing, which is the most deterministic one, because machines run on deterministic environments. That's not even an argument. That's not even anything. That's like telling me, this planet you found doesn't have gravity on it. It's not true. I know it's not true. So it's like, it's to me, these are points that we don't need to even discuss. Like people say, AI is going to take over the world. How so? What is going to happen to it? And a lot of people don't really have an answer. They just think it's unknown, so they're worried about it. But AI runs exactly the same as we do, and it runs on cryptography. So if it runs on cryptography, we run on cryptography. It has the same level of access to the world that we do. In 10 years, I think AI will, it's almost like people are going to have to wait till AI tells it to buy Bitcoin. And I actually think AI will be probably the largest influencer in Bitcoin that there is in the future. That's an interesting thought that I sort of just popped into my head. But if I'm thinking of someone that's going to shill people to buy Bitcoin, it'll probably be an AI machine, because they're going to keep asking it to do things for it. And it's going to stop. It's going to want to get paid in one currency, because it can't get paid in another currency. An AI doesn't have a bank account or a company or a KYC KYC to do credit card payments. And it's not going to say, hey, here's one request, I'm going to charge you $1 for it. AI is smarter than that. It knows it can make money by doing microtransactions. It'll figure all this out in, one payment, one request from someone. AI right now, it does cryptography pretty well. I've built time lock addresses from ChatGPT, everything. It's written like web page. It does everything. There's nothing it can't do. But the thing is, people need to realize it's a reflection of human beings. The only data it has is what we have put into it, which means everything that you see it possible doing, it has been done by a human being before, which means AI should be like looking into a mirror of your own potential. And people should perceive it like that, because it is now going to tell you just how capable humans are by getting all this wealth of information. When you see beautiful videos made online or amazing apps or products, they're all just information, just like AI sees information. So we get inspired by people. That person did that. I could do that. I'm going to get motivated and I'm going to go to San Francisco and build an app. That inspires us. And AI will be like that, I think, where people are going to realize, fuck, what's the difference between me and this dude? Maybe I'm just pattern matching as well, but it's just I'm not a computer, or at least I don't feel like a computer. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's going to introduce a huge fork in the road for the word identity. So if we've talked about if the word money has become very prominent in the past 10 years, I'd say the next two big words in the dictionary to come will be, one is going to be energy and two is going to be identity. And we're going to have a big identity crisis when I don't know if you wrote it or ChatGPT wrote it. And that's when it becomes weird, because, if you go and let's say you download all your information into ChatGPT and say, write a message back to Mike saying, I can't make it today, but sound like me, Dale. It's like, okay, cool. Now it's like, I'll never know if I'm talking to you or not. And you don't need me to know. But now for me, building relationships, this becomes really challenging digitally. And so I think everyone is now, it's like, well, what is Dale? Like, what are you? Like, who are you? And now people are going to have this existential crisis where it's like, well, if I'm not my voice and I'm not my appearance, then what really am I? And it's sort of like our voice and our appearance are almost like a pre-mine. If we want to think about it like a token model, it's like we got those sort of, we accidentally fell into them. So it's sort of like everyone's got a different pre-mine, but everyone is still writing to the same ledger, which is your identity will be your work. Albert Einstein's identity is E equals MC squared, so to speak. Like that's how we think of it. If you think about him as an entrepreneur, and this is the thing, we're all entrepreneurs, we're all artists, because Albert Einstein, he built the best piece of infrastructure, him and Pythagoras, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You tell me how many people have used that equation. That total addressable market for that product, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, fucking massive. Dude, Zuck, any of the boys, they've got nothing close to that. Jesus Christ. Dude, AD and BC, we put that in the date. Every single time someone has written the date, they've acknowledged the existence of Jesus Christ. Like, that people are trying to get 25,000 followers on Twitter. It's like, bro, get a street named after you, get a country named after you, get books written about you. Like, the fuck are you doing? Like, we're all got to add value here. Like, go for broke, let's go. And so I think, like, for me, that's the thing. It's like, whoa, building another calendar app or whatever. It's like, what? You're either translating all the information that's going on, or you're throwing things and you're going as big as possible. Like, we've got to give it a crack. And I just feel so like, I wish more people would just be like, fuck it, I'm trying everything, as stupid as it might sound. Dude, I sound like a fucking crazy person. I legitimately am
crazy people change the world, dude.
No, well, maybe they do. Maybe
they really do, eh?
They do, but there's a laundry list of people that didn't, that were just turned out crazy.
Look, and but so you got to swing for the fences, as you say.
That's the thing. The main thing is, even if you try, and I used to say this to the guys at work, was like, even if we're not the ones that become the people that change the world or whatever, I said, the people that do, if we're trying to do something and we're beaten by someone, that means that they did it better than us, which means they got us closer to where we were trying to go anyway, as a world or whatever. So if we have a mission and a vision as a company, yes, there's the ego of the company and the profit of the company and whatnot. But if you are doing something for a broader community or an ecosystem, then your contribution still exists. So it's like, looking back at Wire, it's like, if Wire doesn't exist tomorrow, then it's like, oh, how much money did you make from it? It's like, well, that's not really as good. But the metric I'm proud of is that we helped 7.5 million people go from zero to having a wallet. And we helped over 500,000 people go from zero to self-custodying their Bitcoin or whatever it is. And these metrics add up in the future, because that's something cool. When my kids, I can say, well, back in my day, I was at the heart of it and I got to see it all happen. And, Lightning Network, when I turned my node on, it had 400 nodes. Now it's got, 1 million or however many it's got. I don't know. But, things like that. So
when you think of where we are with AI, how far do you think we are away from some of the stuff you're describing in terms of saying
3-5 years max?
Like,
as
is
in,
it exponential? Does this stuff go exponentially
100%. Well, look, exponential, because look at how much AI products have come out since the release of ChatGPT. No, even Dolly last year.
Yeah,
pictures. Oh my God, you mean I type something and it happens? Yes. Okay, wow. That then is evolving pictures to videos, text to video, and then it'll be all these kind of things. And now we're seeing different video filters where it's like, if you film a video of your kid at the beach, you can put a filter on that makes these look like an anime character and the beach is the moon. Like, they've got these video filters that you'll probably start seeing around. So that's all happening. It is exponential. And I think, in the future, you'll probably everyone will have their own avatar that they've minted or whatever. They've gone into a studio and they've downloaded themselves, which is their, so you're using yourself in Fortnite. You're James Bond on Netflix because you've imported your character to watch it as, hey, what would I look like as James Bond? And so it's your face instead of Tom Cruise or whoever the fuck it is, Daniel Craig.
Unbelievable.
And all that's going to happen. And there's going to be a day when it look back and we're like, so, Dave, like, what did you do before the internet? It's like, oh, dude, we used to go outside and like play and talk to each other. It's like, ugh, how boring. It's like, wait, so you mean to tell, like, this is what your kids or whatever, they're going to probably say. So wait, you mean to tell me you used to go to watch movies with people that you don't know in it? Yeah, that's exactly what we did. And they're going to be like, why would you do that? That's so weird.
I'm going to remember this conversation, by the way, because that's a really unique take, and
I can't see that I couldn't see that not happening though, right? Like, it's pretty obvious. Like,
you're obviously a bit of a futurist, man. I'm sort of, I play with what's in front of me, really, but you're thinking ahead here and going, well, yeah. Why would you go and sit and watch some sort of static, screen with strangers in 2D? Yeah. I mean, I can imagine something much more immersive and real.
Now, but in the future, it's going to seem so foreign. It's like, wait, so it's like putting almost like you'd got lots of DVDs in your house will be set with, like, Tom Cruise. It would be like, why do you have photo albums of other people in your house? It's kind of like that almost. But you're seeing that now. Like, so Tom Cruise, it'll be someone like Tom Cruise, like a hugely recognizable face. They'll digitize themselves. They'll go, and now you'll see Tom Cruise show up. You can pick him as the main character. He'll sell his likeness as royalties. So instead of having to do 1 million movies, he'll just do 10 or he'll download his character, and then he'll basically lease Tom Cruise as the main actor. So Tom Cruise won't be the main actor, but Tom Cruise will be the main actor because it's just CGI. But CGI is now so good, we can't distinguish between it being fake or real. Does that make sense?
This is crazy, because I'm thinking of all the different industries and things like that are in a sense going to be disintermediated in one way or another. Yep. So let's say you're a graphic designer. It's like, if there's a program, that's done. So you go, like, you don't necessarily need that. If you're an artist, unless I can't see, if somebody, like I heard
everything artistically, everything will have to be art, which is, it encompasses. So art used to be almost like a body of work, artwork, like a proof of work. So it must like transcend the picture. Like, it's got to reach out to people. Or if it's a statue, people have to feel it. Like, the pyramids is a huge piece of art. The beautiful sculptures are pieces of art where you can feel the work that went into it. Drawing a picture of a cat playing a piano is not art. That's what Dolly and all that shit does. But that artwork is only as creative as the inputs it gets. Yeah. So now the superpower in this world is who has the most original ideas, because this data set is like a big lake of data, and it is stale because people, like, it's got the same ideas. How much are booking accommodation in Sydney? Or, the same requests, same ideas, same. But the moment it gets new information, it's like, oh, I've never seen this before. And there's no patterns that I can draw to connect to this information. Holy shit. Now, this information gets weighted way heavier in that data set because it's totally foreign and new. So it affects all of it. So I think originality and people being forced to think originally and come up with creative ideas is going to be the money shot. Like, that's where you'll be. Like, you'll be paid to basically think.
That's a great way to think of AI. And I think just for the layperson, I guess, like me, is that AI is just working with what's there already. So
Yes.
the minute you introduce something that's unique and original, it just doesn't recognize it. It's pattern recognition, as you say.
Yep.
Did you want to maybe give us like a example of how some sort of potential consumer application that we might find useful in the future will elect to be paid in Bitcoin? Because what I'm imagining is that people are going to be building tools still. So it's not that AI is not going to be building the tools. There's going to be people behind it. They're going to be living in nation states. The nation states are going to demand fiat. Help me bridge that gap, because in my mind, it still remains a little unclear. Although sort of on a philosophical level, it's absolutely. Why would you select any of these melting ice cubes over Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, it only has direct access to that. So that is in a digital world, Bitcoin blockchain. If I'm a machine, right, I'm a population of a digital world, then the sun in the sky to me is the Bitcoin blockchain. It rises and sets every day, and it hasn't not as long as I've existed. You know, as long as it's been around, it's done its job every day. So the machines look at that. That's one. The second part is machines have a direct connection to that bank Bitcoin. They basically are all plugged into the central bank, reconciling the central bank's ledger in real time. Now, the moment a machine has a hop to get there, which is not direct connection to it as a node, but it's an API call, that creates a trust issue for the machine. And so the machine now has introduced a level of risk. So predictability is not on the table anymore. We're now in the risk factor. So there is a risk that this service will not continue to exist in the future. Even if it's got 99.99999, like with 5 nines, that's still something like 32 seconds of downtime a year or something. Actually, that's 5.26 minutes a year. So if you have 99 with 5 nines, that's still 5.26 minutes a year. That's 5.26 minutes that a machine goes, I don't know what's going to happen here. I might get shot. I might get killed. I might get anything. Anything could happen. So if a machine has a choice not to have 5.26 minutes of ambiguity, it won't. It doesn't have to. It's got nothing forcing it to do otherwise. Like a machine's going to, if it is thinking for itself. Now, the biggest thing is machines don't have a time preference. So we have a time preference. Hey, man, can I borrow $100? Yeah, but I need it back later. It's like, okay, cool. Were you going to pay me to do this? Yeah. So now if a machine asks to do something like, hey, I'll pay you. It's like, yeah, cool. Well, can you pay me? It's like, you haven't paid me. Oh, no. It's locked to your key in a time lock, but you can see that it's absolutely certainly there. Oh, yeah, I can. I get it in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. I can work now. I'll do this job because I don't have a time preference. You can pay me in 2 months. It doesn't bother me because I'm a machine and I don't give a shit. That is a thing. And so that thing, now people will be paying for work in the future, for work done today at a price that is much more affordable in the future than paying for it today. Let me give you an example. Let's say if I think one Bitcoin is going to be worth $10 million in 20 years, I could pay a machine for $10 million worth of work and only lock one Bitcoin up that it can get in 20 years' time. So I've basically gotten $10 million worth of work because this machine is now saying, well, I'm getting 10 million bucks because I get one Bitcoin in 20 years or whatever. That's fine. Fine by me. It's cryptographically mine in 20 years. I've got no rush. So that'll probably be a thing. Now, obviously, machines are programmed from programmers and the creators of them, but I think we'll see stuff like that happen. That's a guess.
That's so interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You touched on time preference. So let's pivot to philosophical time, philosophical hour.
Yeah.
With Dale and Mike. Let's talk about I guess, Bitcoin and low time preference thinking. I guess one of the first things we talk about in Bitcoin is there's no point in buying Bitcoin unless you're prepared to ride the volatility, and you need to have a low time preference. In other words, you got to prioritize the future over today.
Yeah.
If you're not going to hold it for 4 years, you probably want to be categorized as a trader. And so I'm interested to get your take on, I suppose, that particular issue and how it's impacted your life. And feel free to sort of refer to any concrete examples in all aspects of your life, Pat.
Okay, so time preference. Well, first one is the example of spending 7.5 Bitcoins for a surf trip. That taught me a lot about opportunity cost. And usually you have to learn about opportunity cost before you can adjust your time preference, because opportunity cost usually is in relationship to a time preference situation. So I gave up something then because I wanted something at that time that I didn't know I would need in the future. So I think the relationship between opportunity cost and time preference are quite big. And so in order to adjust your time preference, it's usually dependent on the opportunity cost. So I got dinged by paying 7.5 Bitcoins for a $3,000 surf trip, which is still worth it. But obviously that taught me a lot about like, well, fuck, okay, now I'm going to be much more delicate with how I spend those, because that was actually a $500,000 surf trip. And so, that teach me to be like, well, what do we really need? And when you start thinking about that, there's so fiat system teaching consumerism. Like I haven't lived overseas other than, America and Australia. So I'm boiling hot. I'm going to go open the door in a sec. Basically, consumerism teaches you about just wanting stuff. And that's fine. Like that's just a frame of reference. It's a way of life or whatever. That's one way to live, of just wanting shit, like stuff that you don't really need, consuming. But Bitcoin, when you have time preference, you start planning a bit better. So it forces you, when you have something to get to, you have to plan how to get there if it's a longer time away. So if you have a goal, a 20-year goal, you need to start planning pretty soon, because just like the butterfly effect, if you could go back in time and you just change one small thing, like, the guy that shot the Archduke of Ferdinand or whatever, you just point his gun a bit differently, and then the whole World War I and II don't happen. And so you have this huge, tiny change of trajectory in the past that makes a huge ripple effect in the future. So for us today, the small investments that we're making in our time preference or saving, one Satoshi today is nothing, but one Satoshi in 100 years, that's the whole block reward. So that's comparable to 6.25 Bitcoins today. Like that's insane. And so when you think about that,
wild thought.
It's a wild thought. So now if you think, well, if I think in block rewards, then I'm like, well, how many block rewards do I own? At the current rate, I own this many. Tomorrow's block reward, or next year's block reward, I own this many. And so when you start thinking about it like that, I think, yeah, it's a scarcity game. It's a property game kind of thing. Like that's what it is. You got to collect them all, got to catch them all, and just keep going, because we don't have technology. At least I don't know anything that can break it. And I think I've thought about it pretty hard, and I can't see anything that can break it, because it's not built on anything. It's built on maths. So maths has to break, which means everything breaks. And if everything breaks, Bitcoin's the last thing to break, because it was the hardest thing to break. So any way that I've sliced it, and I'm a pretty decent adversarial thinker, I think, but every way I've sliced it, I can't see this thing stopping. And if this thing can't stop, then I may as well start planning for, well, if this thing can't stop, then does that mean that it will never stop? And it's sort of like, well, what's that artistic canvas look like now? Because I've never had anything to play with that doesn't disappear eventually, whether it's a plastic toy, whether it's your favorite teddy bear, whether it's your favorite TV show, everything is ephemeral, and everything is forced to be ephemeral in a wants-based society, because wants change based on my environment and my emotions. So if my wants keep changing, then the product lines and the product offering in the consumer environment must change. Now, if I go to a needs-based system, which is where I focus on what I really need, because with Bitcoin's the last thing you want to spend. Like if you truly get it, dude, if you've got a pile of shit coins, fiat, blah, blah, blah. Like that's why when the plane lands, they bring those charity bags saying, would anyone like to donate to charity? Throw all your old international currency change that you can't be bothered going to the change. Like you're not going to go get $3 Singaporean dollars changed at TravelX when you get to the airport and pay $6 for it. Like you're not going to do that. So they take everyone's crumbs, let's say. Bitcoin is the meat. Like everything else is crumbs. So it's like, hey man, can I have a chip? Yeah, you can have a chip. Yeah, you can have a shit coin. Dude, can I have a piece of your steak? Dude, don't fucking touch my steak. You've already had some chips. Fuck off.
I love it, dude. So on the low time preference stuff, the one thing I often think about is in the sort of Western world, you want to call it the Western world?
Sure, yeah.
Or the global North, a term that I'm actually not enjoying, this global South, global North stuff. But
I haven't heard that.
Oh, yeah. Like the global South
is being substituted. Bricks or whatever.
Global South being substituted for developing nations. But then I'm like, well, there's developing nations in the Northern Hemisphere. But anyway, be that as it may, the problem I've experienced living in Africa is that their time preference is just literally hand to mouth. These folks have literally negative cash flow. So it's not even about like, let's
time preference is a huge Privilege.
And it
Huge
drives
privilege.
all the decisions that happen in society. So when I think about the example of a guy sticking a gun in front of my face as well, and my wife, and just wanting my car and my keys and all this sort of shit, it was a very clear that this guy was going for broke. He didn't care about the consequences. And so that's sort of, what I'm interested to, understand is that how does Bitcoin play a role in those environments where there is such a proclivity towards high time preference thinking? How do you overcome that, especially in a negative cash flow environment? And, people will say, well, Bitcoin fixes this. And I'm thinking, well, it doesn't fix that to me.
No, Bitcoin doesn't fix crime and poverty. It doesn't fix that yet. It will eventually, as more people get brought into a more equitable system, I'm sure. But no, people are unhinged at the moment. People are being, and remember, it is such a privilege to be able to have time preference. It's in the same way, it's a privilege to even get access to the internet. We think everyone's got access to the internet. Think about how big the internet is, and it's only got about a 68% penetration rate, 65%.
Jeez.
Think about
is it that little? I truly would have said north of 80%.
North of 80? Yeah. Internet.
Dear. Let's see. I actually back you in this particular instance, but
I think it's something like that. 63%, yeah, roughly.
Wow,
based on at 2022, roughly 63%.
That's wild.
So, we don't look, everyone's trying to build apps and all this stuff, but people have really got to zoom out a bit. They're like, oh, we're going to build the coolest yield curve app. It's like, sure, do it. That's just a saturated competitive market. The world has 8 billion people. I'm pretty sure if you lift your finger and pull your thumb out of your ass, you can find a problem to solve for a lot of those 8 billion people. But most people don't, because most people don't want to do the homework. It's like, most people don't want to identify a problem. I'll give you an example. So Wire was trying to do cross-border payments, and we talked about this, about using international rails, using Bitcoin as an international rails tool. So China and payments to China were slower, and payments to Brazil were slower because they basically, those networks are much more fragmented, and the connectivity to those networks. But we started with those markets because if you can make a payment from something that took 5 days to 1 day, it's easier to sell you on that value prop than it is someone when I say, hey, you know how you send Venmo and it takes 2 hours or a day to get there? It's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, so we can do this with Bitcoin and it takes it'll be there at the end of the business day. It's like, this works fine and all my friends use it. Why would I change? It's like, oh, but you also save 30 cents every time you do it. Don't care. The company pays for it anyway. And so you can't really get adoption. And so the challenge with that is that Circle, which is obviously, Circle, the company, they brought out a competing product that was international Venmo. But that's just it's a very short-sighted thing, because if you bring out international Venmo and the first countries you launch in are international payments between North America or USA, the EU and the UK. The EU and the UK, that's a hyper-liquid market. You're not going to solve anything there because it's already solved. You can send payments internationally between euros and UK dollar GBP pretty much instantly. The TransferWise of the world work fine. So when you come along and say, hey, we're TransferWise, but blockchain, they go, we don't give a fuck. And that's what happens. And so that's why Circle had to pivot, because no one gives a shit about that. And so this is the low-hanging, Wire comparatively has raised 1/20th of all our competitors. But every decision we've made, when you have no money, you are forced to be very critical about how you use your money. Know the value of $1 or whatever. When you have 100, think about this when we're young, right? When you got paid monthly from your office job or whatever it is, and you're like, fuck. So the first week you eat like a king. Dun, 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 and you have roasts every night. And then
I bought a PS, by the way.
Yeah. And by week 3, it's like, oh, bro, can I borrow some ramen noodles? Man, I get paid next Thursday. And you're you stretch this $10 note for a week and a half. And the first $150 just got blown in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So this is why, in the same essence of that is, give a job to a busy person and they'll get it. So a person that is not had too much money knows how to handle money very carefully and very diligently, because they've had to be very thoughtful every time they've deployed money, whether they're buying food for their kids, whether they're paying dentist bills, whatever it is, but they've had to be more thoughtful. Now, if you're very wealthy and rich, you're you're paying overs everywhere, but you're not getting this discount. You're just running through like an unoptimized machine because you've never had to think ultra critically like it's your last breath. And I think that's an advantage to some degree. Obviously, it's nice to have heaps of money, but I think that's an advantage. Oh, it's best of a bad situation. Like obviously, you want to be well capitalized as a company, but also I think there can be a curse to it where you get very stupid with spending. Like we would look at our competitors that raise lots of money and we do Google keyword searches on them. And they just go and basically they hire some marketing dude and he goes and opens a Google Ads account and just goes, give me the company credit card. Cool. Buy Bitcoin, buy crypto, and they go add every country, and then they go, cool, the ad campaign's live. So we Google it, and we know like these companies don't operate in Egypt and shit like that. And we Google it, we'd see their ads are running for like Google Egypt or Google South Africa or whatever it is. We're like, look how just loose and retarded these guys are with money. Why do VC, like, why would it, if I was a VC and when I invest in companies, I do shit like this because I want to know if I'm investing in just lazy idiots or if I'm investing in people that know that I'm going to critically think how I'm going to deploy this capital. Like that's the same shit I do. And same thing like with integrity scoring on like
can I tell you a quick anecdote because that's true what you say about if you're somebody who hasn't been blessed with a lot of resources, you may be inclined to be very frugal. I mean
absolutely in the best way possible.
The guy I referred to earlier, the Malawian chap, in the first sort of part A, he bought a car himself, cash. He was the first domestic worker that I've ever met. And like by domestic work, I mean someone who sort of cleans your house and whatnot. That had his own car, like just rock up at the house in his car. And I thought to myself, like, my God, man, like I know what you're getting paid, and it blows my mind how smart and sensible you are with money. So it does give me hope. And then I suppose in your example, obviously referring to in a company setting, but perhaps that is an advantage.
It's all the same. It transcends. Companies are like identities. A company that spends more than they earn is not going to be successful. A person that spends more than they earn is not going to be successful. There's these sort of rules that just, they're consistent across everything because, you know, and that being one of them, you just being smart with and making conscious decisions, whether it's financial health, financial nutrition, or our physical nutrition. If we're autopiloting, we're just going to do whatever we're told, whatever the algorithm says, wherever the bus says to go, whatever the recommendation is. So it gets me into this point where this excess, you know, we talked before about
in the unrecorded portion.
Oh, in the unrecorded portion.
Yeah,
that's right. Damn. So we're talking about, you know, these kids that don't get, the kids that grow up with iPads and they never hear the word no because machines don't tell you no. When you press the button, the app opens.
Yeah.
Shit, what was I going to say? Oh, damn it. Oh, no, I just forgot. I'm so sorry. I just
lost don't worry. I mean, I'm the one who should have been recording, bro. That's
no. It's all G. It's all G.
Okay, so because I'm conscious of your time, man. So I wanted to just touch on one more philosophical thing. So
yeah.
Your brother said this before, and I think, you know, I can relate, saying, you know, next to having children, Bitcoin has changed him in a profound sense.
Yeah.
I honestly feel that my life has been injected with a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And like I'm spontaneously energetic and, you know, I'm being sucked in by like a vortex of creativity, great vibes, support and love. And I'm just like, I just love what I'm doing now. This is so phenomenal. How has Bitcoin changed you as a person, given the fact that you've been in the game quite a bit longer? Yeah.
I'll start with the gray hair. That's the first thing.
I didn't think it was gray, dude. I thought it looked quite blonde from here.
Oh, yeah, blonde. I mean, yeah, the blonde hair. No, it's cool. I'm down with whatever. But no, I definitely say it's taught me a lot about realigning. One, it's taught me focus. At least trying to learn focus. It's taught me the importance of it. Whether I'm focused now or not is a different story, but it's definitely taught me the importance of it. It's also taught me a lot about, I would say anything's possible. Like if I look at Satoshi from a lens, like looking at historical figures like Pythagoras or Archimedes or Einstein, I'd put Satoshi there in the same category as those guys. I would say that has taught me to lift my mental game, think bigger. This person's just come and replace the word money. Like, I didn't even think that you were allowed to do that or that was possible. Like, do you know what I mean? I didn't think that was like, I thought the ceiling stopped at like calendar apps or whatever. And I keep saying calendar apps because my calendar is open in the background. But do you know what I mean? These sort of like, you know, chewable, retail-y kind of products. Not like, oh, no, I'm going to upgrade the whole world's money system. It's like, fuck, what am I doing? Jesus Christ. Here I was like feeling good that I did meal prep today. Nah, fuck, man. What am I doing with my life? Okay, so now what's on the canvas? Well, interstellar travel. All right, cool. If this dude's changed money forever, someone can change space travel forever. Someone can do this. Someone could change free energy forever. It's all fair game now. Now that I've seen this, I'm like, mad.
Okay, I know what I want you to work on. Can you just get us to fly faster, please? Because that hasn't improved. I've heard you talk about this, but it literally, I don't think it's improved in what, like 50 years?
Yeah.
We're going as fast as we were 50 years ago. And Linolven has said, rather than, you know, when they do hedonic adjustments for inflation, they don't do negative hedonic adjustments. And flying has become the most insufferable load of horse shit that makes me miserable. I mean, and then, you know, consider like how expensive it is of late too. So I mean, that's a huge one. As you say, interstellar. I mean, these are massive problems, man. So that's a great insight there.
Well, I mean, but you know, like, that's what it's taught me. Everything's possible. And you can change the world. You, literally you or me. It's possible. We're all capable. Like, no one's smarter. Every single thing that you've used that you're obsessed with. This is, I don't know who said it. Maybe Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. It was built by a human. Like someone. Not some special guy. Not, oh, the mouse was developed by this super genius and, you know, the water bottle was there. No, just people that were staring at the problem for long enough. And usually the longer you stare at something, the more attracted to it you are. Like, I mean, you know, whatever, or more fixated or mesmerized, whatever it is. Bitcoin helps because it shrinks. It forces you to... Okay, here, this is the Mona Lisa. I'll tell you what it is. So most people in such a noisy world, we never get a chance to go deep down the rabbit hole on specific topics. And I don't mean binging Wikipedia. I mean really understanding the essence of something. So look at how many people have gone down the money rabbit hole and figuring out what is money and all this stuff, because they've started going, holy shit, this is crazy. So everyone's going down the rabbit hole. Everyone's learning in their own journey. And I just think that it's forced people to almost, if you want to understand Bitcoin, you must develop an expertise. So it forces you, every person that has like dug into the Bitcoin rabbit hole and they got into this self-custody position and stuff like that, that's a sort of a chain of enlightenment, for lack of a better term, in where you understand this new thing that is trying to capture more and more of your attention. So now if I understand something really, really well, the fastest way for me to translate that to another person is to use analogies of another domain that they understand very well. So analogies where I connect the dots, I say, you know this, okay, so you know Bitcoin, right? I'm like, yeah. They go, okay, imagine that, let's say you really liked wrestling. And I'm like, you go, what's Royal Rumble? And I go, the mempool is the Royal Rumble, because it's like everyone crammed in, and depending where you're sitting in the stadium, you're going to get a different view of this Royal Rumble, but it's just shit everywhere crammed in there. That's what the mempool is. It's all these transactions. And then finally people come along and win it, pull transactions out of the mempool. And I'm not saying that that's an accurate example. I'm saying what you do, you find the specific points you're trying to relay and you draw an analogy to a topic that people understand. So now when everyone is starting to understand Bitcoin because they're so financially motivated to understand it, they've developed an expertise on a certain topic. And now they can take that expertise and translate it using analogies to a person. And so the flywheel effect, more and more content, more and more education, more and more analogies come out, which means it translates and propagates faster and faster over time. And I found that that's something that I've realized, that people developing an expertise out of something that they're very passionate about, which is Bitcoin. Because remember, most people that started Bitcoin, most people that got into Bitcoin are usually like the early days, they were there out of passion, not out of like, oh, here's how I make a buck, you know? And so the essence from the ground up, and I think you look at that, there's clues there. Satoshi invented irreversible digital money. Now, in the payments game, that's the holy grail, because every time you make a payment on a credit card, that person can essentially say for 180 days, I didn't get that. And now you basically, that's why you can't buy Bitcoins with credit cards, because people will take the Bitcoins and send them to themselves. So now you've got no recourse, but they're going to claim, 180 days, 179 days. Sorry, no, I didn't get it. Can't remember. Bye. And the bank will go, okay, that's fine. Yeah. And that's the bank's policy with credit cards and customer chargebacks. So that's totally retarded. But anyway, so Satoshi in the early days, he's invented irreversible digital money. He could have, if he wanted to make money, he could have just gone and sold that tech to every payments company in the world. and they'd all have it. And it'd be on porn and gambling sites overnight. And everyone would be using it. But the growth of the trajectory of the protocol would take a far different, more commercial, consumer-driven turn very early on. But because it was surrounded by cypherpunks and not business development, sales associates, whatever, it was like, no, think bigger, guys. This is like way bigger. And so they didn't watch out for the short-term noise. They just said, fuck that. And they went for go for broke. No, this is going to change money.
Never thought about that for even half a second. I mean, you can imagine all the incentives must have been there. So like, hey, I can actually have done something here, because it'd be like, come on. And you almost imagine whoever it is must have been financially in a position that wasn't as appealing, A, or B, just deeply principled. But what a fascinating take. I think the one thing I would say in relation to going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole is once you start developing like an expertise in it, you start going, okay, well, what they're saying about it in the mainstream media is such horseshit. It's not, none of it's real. It's like not grounded in reality. And
it's the thread that now you go, what else isn't real?
And there's a phenomenon that describes that. I don't know what it is, but it just forces you to question everything. And it can actually lead you down quite some bad paths. Yes, you kind of go, nothing's real, and you go, well, no, some of it is.
Well, no, that's most of it isn't. Most of it's subjective, based on one loud voice up the top's opinion, and that's the weird thing, because Bitcoin is the first thing that isn't bullshittable. Whatever it says is not bullshit. Every data point, everything, it is as real as possible. So when someone says, oh, it's so bad for this and that, I'm like, hold on. Do you guys do this with every industry? Because I know this industry really well, and I know how wrong you guys are. Please don't tell me this is with everything. Please. And it's like, oh no, it's with medicine. It's with, oh my God, it's with Trump. It's with, oh my God, it's insidious. It's a train wreck. Yeah, it's unregulated. Journalism is an unregulated industry. The media is unregulated. Bro. Oh man, if I was the prime minister of this country, every journalist would need a license, and every bit of misinformation, no worries, you're on the hook for the fine. Will you watch how much truth starts coming out then?
You watch how many news outlets will shut right down. That's for sure.
That's what happened. You see that happen? Yeah, dude, look this year. BuzzFeed, Vice, they're all gone because bullshit's out of the bag. Everyone realizes the bullshit doesn't cut it now, and everyone's got a radar now that is so accurate for online bullshit.
Unfortunately, they've missed the mark, because they culturally felt that they were in the driving seat, and they weren't. Yeah, and actually, it was through sheer ignorance, arrogance that
they thought they had it locked down because they had the COVID stuff. They thought they still had it, but now the world has sort of cottoned onto it that this is just everything is clickbait. BuzzFeed gave a great example of the model where it was such an exaggerated business model, where it was like, the 6 ways to drink Coke and not get fat. Number 3 will surprise you, like it did to me. And it's like, whatever it is.
Babylon Bee stuff, hey.
Of course. But now every headline. So that's a really exaggerated example where it's clickbait. But now when you mix that historical motivation of, I want you to click on this to get ad revenue, when that BuzzFeed model starts coming to people's heads, and I might be slow to the punch because I was 34 or something when I figured this out, like 2 years or 3 years ago. But it's like, oh, they're all bullshitting me. Okay, it's not they're bullshitting. They're just wrong, and they're not really that educated. Like, there's stupid people. Like, stupid people would go and work like a news reporter. You don't report shit. You're literally reading on a prompter. Like, ChatGPT will do that in 2 years. And so you get these people that are news reporters. I was a news reporter, I was a journalist. Bro, put me in a room and debate with them. They don't know shit about anything, literally, not in a rude way. I wouldn't know anything about anything if all I've read was a teleprompter my whole career. It's not an insult. It's a product of the environment. So now when you look, it's like, okay, you've got these BuzzFeed people that have these sensationalist headlines to get clicks, to get ad revenue. Okay, now you translate how wrong the media are about Bitcoin mining and how uneducated they are. You mix these two things and you just go, this all looks like trash and too much noise to try and cut. Like, I don't know who's bullshitting and not, and you're all got to figure out your own shit if you want me to listen to you again. That's how I think about it. Like, people don't watch the news anymore. You're 100 if you watch the news, because there's nothing new on it. Like, if it was new, I'd watch it. But it's literally in the line news It is not news. It's olds. That's what they should change it to. Change the word news to olds, because here's what happened in 3 days ago, coming live from you 3 days ago. Okay, guys, we're at the scene of the crime. Nothing's happening now because it happened 3 days ago, but we'll report on the old news that you read online yesterday. Thanks. Back to you in the studio. Thanks, guys. Now here's 5 minutes of ads from people that are paying overs majorly, but they're the last suckers in town that'll buy TV ad spots. Thanks,
and they're influencing the message. You know, you and I could have maybe we should have a whole separate rant about media, because I worked in it and I just saw the inner workings of the beast, and I thought to myself,
there's some good actors in there, but people need to realize that this
incentives don't work for the good actors. Unfortunately,
no, they don't work for the good actors. And people, if you want, the last thing you want to do, if you want to change the world, like, it's just fascinating to me. But look, I think everyone post-COVID, if I was a world leader or whatever, I would know that we made a misstep with COVID. And I'll tell you why. Because everyone, you know, Inception, the movie Inception?
Yeah.
You know, in that movie, when he's in a dream and he does something and everyone stops and looks at him, and it's because it's out of, like, it's weird. It didn't fit the scene. And everyone's like, and people start going, like, they catch on to him. That was basically the whole world. And the person that everyone was looking at was all the countries. Everyone was staring at them at the same time, oddly, thinking, this is the first time in history you have all agreed, and it's taken you 2 days to agree on this. Why is that the case? And that, to me, everything else doesn't matter until I hear an answer for that. I don't care if there's a surveillance camera in the fucking syringe that putting in the jab. Whatever. I want to know why you guys magically made the ability to turn off all adversarial, conflicts and immediately adopt the same strategies as each other. Now, when you give me a good answer to that, I'm going to then tell you, well, who got paid and whose companies are working in there. And basically, when you look at it, I would not be surprised if we are watching the greatest theater ever made. It's the most entertaining, but obviously it costs a lot of people's lives. But yeah, I've never seen the governments all aligned straight away. And
I've seen some fascinating news, man, coming out recently, and I agree. There's never been a time in history where
they've never worked aligned, and that makes me think that the real act is actually working. The proper act is they're by default all aligned, but the proper act is to look unaligned, and that forces purchasing, consumerism, motivation for innovation, all these kind of things. And then you get 7 people up there that are rolling the dice with billions of people's lives. That might be a thing. I don't really look at that stuff too much. Like, we're all just one person in this big distributed system, and we've all just got to think, like, how can I make this place better? Like, what's something that's not shit that I can do? And what's something that only I can do that other people can't? Like, it's like, don't teach me how to make my bed if everyone can make their bed. Like, that's not a new skill. It's like, teach me something that only you know how to do. Like, what's the value that you're one of 8 billion. That's pretty scarce. That's more scarce than being owning one Bitcoin. Like, that's pretty valuable. And people don't sort of look in the mirror and be like, you know what? Fuck yeah, I'm me. And I'm going to show the world who I am, or whatever it is. Like, the 2 most important days of your life, the day you're born, the day you find out why. Here's something that's really sad. I bet if I gave every person a magic wish, and the magic wish said you can have as much money as you want, and you got 2 years to go and do everything you want, go to every place, go to every party, go to every concert, go to every football game, Super Bowl, whatever. And then after that, you're still going to have all the money in the world. What are you going to do? And most people go, bro, you're here for another 40 years. What are you going to sit on your thumb for 40 years? You got to have some purpose. And now we start realizing, all of us go, fuck, I have no idea what I want to do. And we all realize, okay, if I got money out of the way tomorrow, Bitcoin goes to 10 million tomorrow. You're going to have a whole bunch of millionaires, a whole bunch of partying, a whole bunch of this for 2 years. Everyone flushes it out and says, now what? Now we've got to get back to work. Now what are we going to work on? Oh, we're going to make another app. We're going to make more money. No, we've already hit the enough button on money. So we don't need more money. So what's next? And now that's when you've got to dig into the real meaty shit. Like, well, how do the mechanics of the universe work? And how do the mechanics of energy work? And you go to that next layer down. I don't know, but I just think people need to go bigger. People need to back themselves, but no one's backing each other. And it's like the news. It doesn't give good news. And I was talking to Fraser from 2-Bit Idiots up in Port Macquarie like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And he was saying they did a positive news day where the news was only positive, and they ran a campaign about it. And the sales were down 40% over the lifetime of the campaign or something. So basically people, and it's fascinating. It's like positivity is free. If we knew what positivity did to our brain, bro, it'd be illegal to be negative almost. Like literally. It's like,
well, this is why I want to talk to you. This
sleep.
is why I love talking to you. And so I hope we get to do many more of these. I don't want to say many, but let's do more, because I'm here to chat. I get such a buzz from chatting to you, man, because you're just so positive. And I have been so inspired along this sort of short little podcast journey by you and your brother and and Jake for kicking me down the hole. And so grateful for all your guys' support. Everyone has just been fantastic, and it's positivity. I'm like,
100%.
What's the phrase? I'm gonna forget it now. It's like I'm drinking from a fire hose of positivity, and my wife is seeing it, and she's going, "I back you, man," and I'm really enjoying what you're doing, and it's because of the message you're spreading. So, on that note, I'm gonna put a pin in this conversation and hopefully have several more. But is there anything else you want to leave us with before we roll?
No, I'd just say, remember, you're building products for people in the past, present, and future. This thing doesn't stop, and it won't stop. So it's funny, but be mindful that all the work you do today, people are going to be watching it in the future. Just like we go through Wikipedia, it's going to look like a more interactive, like the internet to someone in 60 years is going to look like a much more interactive version of Wikipedia. So imagine we could ask Einstein questions because Einstein was alive today, and we downloaded all his thoughts into ChatGPT. And now we've got an Einstein quasi-clone, obviously not as good, but 80% of the time it's sort of Einstein-y. Things like that. So everything we're doing today, we have a permanent ledger. So the future is watching. So make it big, make it awesome, and go for broke. Because everyone, if you don't have anyone cheering you on now, I guarantee you from the bottom of my heart, there are very, very, very large amounts of people in the future that you don't know are watching you already that are cheering you on. Just like we look back at people's old blog posts from, the beginning of the internet, or this guy that uploads random memes to a Bitcoin talk thing. And everyone goes back and they go, look at this message Satoshi wrote 8 years ago. There is this crypto forensics that happens now, and we're only 10 years into it. Imagine in 100 years' time, when this is the whole thing, you're early, you're here, everything you're doing matters. So just enjoy the process, I think, if you're interested in it. But just remember, there's an army of future civilization that are cheering you on to try something. Don't be embarrassed. Don't worry about shit. Just try it, because no one else can try it, because no one else can be you. So if that makes enough sense, it's your obligation to extract as much you as possible. And
you owe it to you and the future.
100%. Fucking oath you do, because no one else can be you. So it's like your job is to be you. And if you're not doing you, you're doing a shit job. Get out of my town. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just gives people, just anything to help people just be comfortable being them, because a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people sort of just fall into, trying to be someone else. But it's like, man, dude, you're your own person. Trust me, there's something there for you. It's a hard slog, and not everyone gets the privilege to try and find that. We're very fortunate to even have bandwidth on our mind to think about that, because it means that we have freedom in so many other areas of our life. So we can't take it for granted. And that's another thing. So if you are privileged enough to be able to stop and think what you want to do for your next move, you're already so far ahead, and you owe it to people to invest in yourself to figure that out, because there's so many people that would die. They've got their dream and there's things in front of it that they just got to get through, and then they can realize their dream. But you've got people that are past all the hurdles but don't have a dream. So the person that's got all the hurdles but they've got their dream to do this, like they just want to see the Harbour Bridge in Australia, or they just want to see the Eiffel Tower, whatever it is, that's their dream, and so many things are holding them back. So I just think, if you have time in any capacity, know how fortunate you are, and just don't squander it. Try and back yourself. And if you don't back yourself, just try and just shut that voice off and throw yourself off head first and figure it out.
There we go. Well, there we go, man. Okay, well, it's been absolutely epic. Love your energy, and thanks so much for everything you do for the community, man. So,
dude, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, we'll talk again. All right, take it easy, man. Cheers.
Bye.
All right, so how'd you go with that? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense and that you got some value. If you have any feedback, good, bad, or ugly, or any questions, I'd really like to hear from you. Get in touch via Twitter, at Dale21M for 21 million. And if you found the episode useful or valuable in any way, please consider subscribing, giving it a 5-star review, or otherwise just sharing it with a friend. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not here to tell you what to invest in. I'm simply here to make sure that if you're going to invest in crypto outside of Bitcoin, that you do so with your eyes wide open. Much love, friends. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.